The job listing went live at 3:02 Standard Galactic Time, buried between an interstellar dishwashing technician and unpaid ambassadorial intern position. It was labeled generously as Planetary Seeds Reconnaissance Specialist, Organic Preferred. The job description was a bureaucratic haiku of understated doom, extreme environmental exposure, probable engagement with Class 9 hostiles, compensation, legacy optional, insurance non-transferable. A footnote clarified the definition of reconnaissance as walking into certain death with eyes open. Within minutes, every major species on Galactic Labor Exchange had flagged the listing as either satire, violation, or deeply offensive. The Zorvans declared it a war crime against common sense. The Miku issued a condemnation and a fruit basket. A coalition of peacekeepers tried to sue the posting out of existence. Humans, of course, clicked apply. Not just one. 12. The Galactic Empire, who had posted the job as a political formality, half expecting no responses, suddenly found itself sifting through a dozen Terran applications. Most came from people with questionable backgrounds. Failed astronauts, extreme climbers, 2 poets, and 1 retired line cook with a high tolerance for bad decisions. The Empire, in its imperial wisdom, chose Lieutenant Ellis Cade. Call sign, Locke. Human, female, 34. Tactical rating, unreadable. Her acceptance came with a standard waiver of rights, insurance, complaints, and survival guarantees. She signed it between sips of coffee and asked if she could bring her own rifle. The Empire agreed, mostly because it assumed she wouldn't last long enough to matter. The deployment site was a war moon called Kelrath Station 9, abandoned after it swallowed 3 fleets, and began rewriting its own gravity. Now, it was a live-fire engagement environment, which was Galactic Council code for a place you sent things you didn't want back. The job was simple. Drop 1 organic into Kelrath, have them survive for 6 hours, retrieve black box data, and transmit a beacon confirming presence. That's it. No support, no extraction, no applause. Success rate, 0%. Until now. She arrived just past the 3rd eclipse, standing alone at the edge of a fractured landing platform. The sky overhead churned with thunderous gas rivers and static lightning. The air tasted like iron, sweat, and something faintly resembling mint if you'd grown up inside a furnace. Ellis Cade didn't flinch. She wore matte black fatigues, a utility vest, and a facial expression that suggested she'd been unimpressed since birth. Her boots clicked once against the deck. The sound echoed with surprising clarity in the vacuum-muted storm. A drone hovered into view, bright red light spinning around its lens. Lieutenant Cade, welcome to your assignment. Please state your readiness. I'm breathing, she said, adjusting her rifle. That's as ready as I get. The drone paused. Affirmative. Please proceed to Zone Alpha 1. Try not to step in the sentient sludge. Behind her, the lander disengaged with a hiss and bolted skyward. She didn't watch it go. Elsewhere, entire species tuned in. Kelrath's reactivation was being live broadcast as a trial demonstration, an Empire-sponsored test of planetary combat readiness. Most tuned in for the gore. A few wanted to see if humans would finally embarrass themselves in a way that could be categorized and dismissed. The Horgel ran a death pool. The Vriehake debated whether her pulse would last longer than her Wi-Fi signal. One Branny's diplomat simply laughed and filed a preemptive obituary. To Earth from the stars. Nice try. The Galactic Betting Alliance put the odds at 1,348 to 1. One ambitious child in the Slimebelt Quadrant bet a year's allowance on her survival. His classmates held a vigil. Inside the war moon, the gravity was drunk. That was the only way to describe it. Tilting every 7 seconds in a lurching spiral, like the laws of physics were on break. Electrical storms rolled across the ceilings, occasionally coalescing into something suspiciously sentient before dissolving again. Ellis Cade moved through it all with a kind of grim fluidity, adjusting to the rhythm, never resisting the tilt, just flowing around it. Her rifle, a custom-built Terran model named Scylla, rested across her back, weightless under shifting mass. No smart optics. No AI enhancements. Just a scope, a sling, and enough recoil to crack a shoulder. She didn't trust weapons that whispered. Zone Alpha 1 approaching. The drone chimed, veering suddenly to avoid a blast of spontaneous fire. The arena, if it could be called that, opened into a vast pit, cracked architecture, scorched walls, rusted bones of ancient walkers. The floor pulsed with heat signatures too regular to be natural. Something was alive down there. Several somethings. A voice crackled over her comms. Not human. Deep, layered, like a cathedral argued with itself. This is Overseer Braggock, speaking for the Empire. Organic participant Ellis Cade. You are observed. Commence. A moment passed. Ellis unslung her rifle. The drone blinked twice, recording her vitals. Braggock's voice continued. Do you accept the terms of engagement? Ellis looked into the camera, expression flat. No. Clarify? I don't accept them, she said, chambering around. I just didn't care enough to say no. There was a long, collective pause across the galaxy. Then the signal light blinked green. Trial engagement begins in 10-9. Ellis Cade took a knee, aligned her scope with the movement in the pit. 8-7. She watched the figures below. 20, maybe more. Cybernetic. Tall. Bred for war. They didn't know she was here yet. 6. She adjusted the wind offset by instinct. Checked for structural rebound. 5. Inhaled once. 4. Her finger rested on the trigger. 3. She blinked. 2. The rifle kicked. Engagement commenced. The first enemy dropped before the rest even registered the sound. And somewhere in a glass tower orbiting a dead moon, an alien diplomat slowly uncapped his pen and wrote, "We may have miscalculated." The second one fell before it hit full stride. Ellis Cade didn't wait for confirmation. Confirmation wasted seconds, and seconds that you reorganized into a fine red mist. She slid sideways down a collapsed conduit, knees braced, scope to eye, calculating angles the way some people did mental math when counting loose change. Kelras Station's ecosystem had changed. What once served as hallways now throbbed like arteries, lined with half-living tech and whispering walls. There were no clean surfaces, only chrome scabs and welded teeth. Everything wanted her gone. She didn't oblige. Behind her, the recon drone hovered in confused admiration. 3 confirmed targets neutralized. Observation. Earth military doctrine includes extremely high first strike lethality. Ellis didn't answer. She was already pivoting, tracking new motion near the vent systems. Combatants were shifting. An ambush pattern. Sloppy. Overconfident. She fired twice. Movement ceased. The drone updated. 5 confirmed. Are you using predictive AI? No, she murmured, reloading. Just paying attention. Her voice barely moved the air. Calm. Focused. Like this was a long hike with occasional murder. In a council chamber 12 light years away, Braggock the Overseer narrowed all 9 of his eyes. He leaned forward, claws twitching, tusks glinting under ceremonial oils. Around him, the Empire's observers whispered in muttered dialects and static pheromone puffs. She's not bleeding, he said, or broadcasting distress. Added the Horgel monitor. Could be denial offered a bureaucrat. Humans repress. Not like this, Braggock growled. She's hunting. Ellis Cade had grown up outside Seattle, where it rained just often enough to wash away the excuses. Her father had been a surveyor. Her mother worked logistics. Nobody in the Cade household ever panicked. They prepared. She remembered being taught to breathe before choosing. Not think, choose. There was a difference. Her first kill hadn't been in a war zone. It had been during a training sim, when she corrected the instructor's flawed terrain model mid-shot, adjusted for echo wind, and cleanly executed the simulation with a round no one else had dared attempt. She wasn't promoted. She was quietly observed. Earth's higher command had marked her as problematic asset. Too quiet, too consistent. The Empire had picked her based on the assumption she was harmless. That mistake was compounding by the second. In the arena's southern quadrant, Braggock's champion entered the stage. Jorvith, a 9-foot apex biodank with neurosuppressant roar and armor grown from the bones of extinct carnivores. Jorvith had survived 8 trials, 2 coups, and an experimental black hole nap. He was the Empire's finishing piece, the thing they sent when they were no longer interested in witnesses. He stomped into the fray, trailing plasma steam and pride. Across the arena, Ellis crouched behind a shard pillar and sighed. She had no idea who he was. She didn't need to. She had already cataloged the tremor his feet left in the decking, noted his armor's slow-phase shimmer pattern, and detected a 3-millisecond lag in his right side step. "He's limping," she muttered, not to the drone. To herself. She adjusted. The drone chirped uncertainly. New opponent inbound. Warning. Empire-class enhanced lifeform. Suggested protocol. Retreat and request orbital evacuation. Ellis glanced at the drone. "Was that your idea or your programming?" The drone hesitated. "Mostly programming." "I don't retreat," she said. "I reposition." It logged that, adjusted her psychological profile from disciplined to lethally indifferent. Across the viewing network, the betting houses were on fire. Humans were never meant to last this long. The death pools were misaligned. The odds ratios collapsed in real time. Syndicates scrambled to shut down open lines. One gambler tried to void his bet by claiming humanity was a relative term. Braggett growled, "Send the cameras. I want the death captured properly." Drones swarmed toward Jorvith. The beast raised his voice in a guttural anthem about bones and dominance. Ellis shot out one of the cameras. Not to hide, to warn. The audience gasped. On Earth, someone replayed the footage and whispered, "She's smiling." Jorvith's entry wasn't subtle. He announced himself with a tectonic stomp, shattering a power relay and igniting half the southern deck. Ellis watched his arrival like a forecaster tracking a storm. He was massive, armored, loud. He would be dead in less than 90 seconds. She slipped left, crossing under a rusted catwalk, dropping a shock mine behind her without looking. It didn't matter if it worked. It would make him look down. And when someone looked down, they forgot to look up. She climbed 3 tiers of debris, rifle strapped, movement economical. She marked his path, counted each breath, tracked the way his shoulder compensated for the limp. He didn't know she was above him now. He couldn't hear her. Her boots made less noise in memory. Jorvith roared again. Ellis clicked her rifle into place, breath steady. The drone buzzed nervously nearby. Probability of success, less than 2%. "Good," she said. She fired. The first round struck the armor joint, cracked it just enough. Jorvith turned with an infuriated howl, just as he stepped on the shock mine. The jolt twisted his movement. He stumbled, exposed his flank. She fired again. The shot shattered through the open joint, lodging deep in the augmented nerve cluster beneath. He froze. His systems flickered. His roar cut short. Then he collapsed, metal bone growl, all folding like bad origami into the dirt. Silence, long and sharp. Then, opponent neutralized, the drone whispered. In the command chamber, Braggett stood slowly. His mandibles clicked once. No. Ellis Cade reloaded, crouched atop the ruin, eyes scanning for more. 17 remaining. The drone offered. She didn't smile. She just exhaled and said, "Let's make it around 20. The third gravity shift hit, like a silent betrayal. Ellis Cade dropped to one knee as the War Moon's rotational pulse tilted 30 degrees to port, sending loose metal shrieking across the deck like panicked birds. Somewhere behind her, an entire corridor folded into itself and reappeared 10 meters west, its lights flickering like they were remembering how to function. She didn't panic. She adjusted. Gravity was a suggestion here, a mean-spirited rumor. It changed every few minutes, like a child fiddling with the rules of a game mid-match. Most species relied on stabilizer implants to compensate. Cade had reflexes and a stubborn refusal to play along. The drone bobbed erratically above her. Environmental instability increasing. Probability of physical distortion, 72%. Ellis grunted. "Only if I move wrong." "Which direction is wrong?" "Ask the crater that used to be right." She rose, boots finding purchase on a panel angled like a broken promise, and scanned the next corridor. The heat signatures were stacking again, more hostiles, closing fast. She checked the chamber count in her rifle. 10 rounds. Not enough for the welcoming party. Good. She preferred it that way. The Empire had done this on purpose, of course. Sent her to Kelrath not for reconnaissance, not even as punishment, but as a test. A disposable variable in an unwinnable scenario. The Galactic Council watched for spectacle. The Empire watched for data. And Ellis Cade was writing in blood. In the observation suites orbiting above, Bragg leaned forward, antennae twitching. She's not just surviving, he muttered. She's interpreting. The analyst conferred in panicked whispers. What do you mean? She's reading the moon's behavior. Not reacting, adapting. She knows its rhythm. A ZYRCT diplomat hissed. She cannot possibly compute all variables in real time. Bragg's eyes narrowed. She doesn't need to. She feels them. Ellis pressed 2 fingers to the floor and closed her eyes. The vibrations were coming in pairs, 7-second stutters. That meant structural tension. Something was charging beneath her. She shifted to the left, just as a floor panel exploded upward in a spray of glass and acid foam. A biomech burst out of breach. 8 limbs, plated spine, eyes like wet stars. It roared. She didn't. The shot cracked through its ocular cluster, snapped the neck joint, and embedded in the ceiling behind it. The creature spasmed once, then stilled. The drone chirped, trying to sound helpful. 150 known combatants remain. Ellis rolled her shoulder. Still time for lunch. She moved through the tunnel, careful not to step in the twitching puddle of her recent guest. The war moon hummed beneath her, not just alive, but listening. She kept her voice low. I don't need to be faster than them, she whispered. Just sooner. The next ambush came from above. 2 figures dropped from the ceiling, one wielding a buzz staff, the other wrapped in phase cloak distortion. They moved like predators trained by ghosts. Ellis crouched, ducked beneath the swing, pivoted on a heel of her off foot, and used the cloak's distortion field as cover against a staff strike. The 2 enemies collided mid-attack. She stepped back and shot once. One went down. The other turned, flicking its blade open to 3 serrated edges, lunged, and hit air. Ellis had already moved. The counterstrike was surgical. A shot to the tendons of the attacking arm, a follow-up into the exposed jaw, and a 3rd round straight into ground at its feet, disrupting balance just as the next gravity cycle flipped the room on its axis. They fell. Hard. She didn't. The drone caught up, its lens spinning nervously. Tactical analysis indicates extreme inefficiency in their approach. Not inefficient, she replied. Just not updated. Updated to what? Human stubbornness, she said, moving on. In orbit, Bragg was silent. The other commanders looked to him. What now? She's making the moon hers. That's impossible. Then explain why the terrain is hurting them more than her. On the arena floor, Ellis stepped across a cracked panel and noticed something new. A light, faint, pulsing, tucked behind a blast door long since jammed. She crouched, traced the signal. The drone hovered close. Unknown energy source detected, possibly black box transmitter. She nodded once. This was the goal. The entire reason the job had been posted. Not to kill, not to win. Just to survive long enough to find this. The transmitter was ancient, pre-Empire tech, dusted with burn scars and still flickering green. She reached for it, then stopped. Behind her, the silence broke. Footsteps. Singular. Measured. She stood slowly. A figure stepped into view. Humanoid in shape, armored in black chrome. Visor opaque. No insignia. No sound. No scent. No mistakes. Ellis exhaled. Finally, a challenge. This wasn't one of the others. This was a contingency. Bragg's eyes widened. They activated the fail-safe. The observers gasped. But that unit hasn't been used since the Varnic uprising. They're afraid, Bragg murmured. Afraid she might finish. The figure raised its weapon. Ellis didn't flinch. One breath. One pulse. She let the gravity roll through her again. Tilted her stance. Accounted for recoil, wind curve, proximity heat. She smiled. The first shot was hers. Always. It hit, but the figure didn't fall. It tilted its head, as if confused by the damage. Ellis adjusted, not for fear. For math. She fired again. Then again. Every shot precise. Every moment accounted for. Still it stood. She looked at the drone. Status. Engagement probability of success now, 12%. She smirked. Better odds than usual. Then she dropped the rifle. Not in surrender. In strategy. Her boots pushed off into the magnetic shift. Using the War Moon's heartbeat as propulsion, she reached the figure mid-lunge, twisted midair, pulled a fail-safe's own weapon from its gauntlet, and redirected its momentum into a collapsing conduit. Impact. Sparks. Silence. Then she crawled out, dragging her leg, blood slicked down her thigh. But standing. The figure remained inside, burning. The drone blinked once. Twice. Target neutralized. Ellis spit blood. Told you. Just a Tuesday. Behind her, the black box flickered again. Signal active. And somewhere in the stars, the Council began to sweat. The transmission hit the Galactic network at 8:41 Standard Time, a pulse of data followed by a single video frame. Lieutenant Ellis Cade standing alone, scorched and bloodied, next to the activated black box beacon on Kelras Station 9. Behind her, the smoldering ruin of the Empire's fail-safe unit still twitched faintly, like a myth reconsidering its choices. No anthem, no speech, no survivors other than her. The caption underneath simply read, "Mission complete." The first species to respond were the Vrihaka, who issued a statement beginning with "Won the Void" and ended in legal disclaimers. The Zorvins held a moment of silence, followed by a very loud moment of screaming. Several broadcast drones imploded under the weight of audience shock. Even the Slimebell Consortium, famously unflappable, declared the incident emotionally disturbing and canceled that week's reality disintegration show. Inside the observation suite, Bragg sat perfectly still. One claw tapped against the obsidian desk with mechanical rhythm. The sound was the closest thing to prayer he'd ever made. The analyst beside him whispered, "What now?" Bragg stared at the footage again. Not the death, not the fire. Just her posture, upright, centered, like nothing surprised her anymore. Then he spoke. "We stopped posting jobs humans can read. The Galactic Empire tried to spin it. Official press releases described the Kelras Station test as a valuable learning opportunity. They praised Ellis Cade's performance as unique, unexpected, and regrettably efficient. A PR drone went so far as to suggest her success had been a data entry error. The betting syndicates filed mass grievances. Thousands demanded refunds. Others sued for mental trauma after watching the footage at double speed. One high roller from the VAR sector vanished after claiming he'd seen her wink at the camera. The Galactic Council scrambled to recalibrate their species' threat index. Humanity was moved from quaintly aggressive to strategically catastrophic. Their diplomatic file was reclassified. Do not provoke. Do not invite. Do not assume. Back on Earth, things were quiet. No parades. No medals. Just a soft news segment buried on the third tab. Terran soldier survives Galactic trial. Empire declines comment. Ellis Cade landed 4 days later at a small orbital dock above Patagonia. No fanfare. No debrief. She walked off the ship with a limp and a duffel. Security scanned her once, decided not to ask, and looked away. She caught a ground transport into the mountains. The driver tried small talk. She ignored it. He asked what she did for a living. She said, "Contract work." The driver nodded like that explained the bloodstained boots. The bar in the mountain town hadn't changed in 10 years. Same creaky floorboards. Same rusting jukebox. The same bartender polishing the same glass with the same rag, which may or may not have seen water this century. She pushed open the door, stepped inside, and let the quiet wrap around her like an old coat. The bartender looked up. His eyebrows did most of the talking. "You're her," he said. She took a seat at the far end of the bar, the same stool she always took before she left Earth the first time. "No," she said. "I'm someone who looks like her." He poured her tea without asking. Steam rose like a lazy ghost. The holoscreen in the corner buzzed with static, then resolved into a loop broadcast. Kelras Station, round 32. The moment where she disabled a 3-ton biodank with a wall panel and timing. Over and over, she stared into her tea. That's not how it felt. Yeah, the bartender said. It never is. In orbit, a final report was filed under Lock Code Data 9. It contained the mission logs, environmental readings, combat data, and a short personal note hand-typed by one of the council scribes. The human did not win because she was stronger. She won because she understood the rules could be bent, because she played for survival, not spectacle, because she did not need to be seen to matter. This is why we fear them. Somewhere, in a classroom beneath red skies, a young alien raised a trembling appendage and asked its instructor, "Why do humans volunteer for death?" The teacher hesitated, then pulled up a still frame of Ellis Cade, post-mission, hands bloody, standing as if the galaxy owed her nothing, and she owed it even less. Because, the teacher said, they don't think it's death if it teaches them something. Back on Earth, Ellis paid her tab in exact change, stood slowly and walked to the exit. "Where you headed next?" the bartender asked. She paused, thought about lying. "Wherever they think we don't belong," she said. Then she opened the door and stepped out into snowfall. The kind that didn't ask for permission. The kind that felt quiet but buried cities.